Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah, coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give all praises to the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray that the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past, in order to understand the events that are currently happening on the earth, so we get a much better understanding of things that are soon to come on the earth. Brother, we're going to get right into this real quick. I'm kind of getting sick and tired of everybody acting like if you don't agree with the mainstream theatrics, that you're some kind of an idiot or naive. If you go off of the plantation and you go off of things that they tell you, they insult our intelligence. They make it seem like the only way people that think that the true Hebrews could be the so-called Negroes are idiots, are people who need to go and study. And I'm sure that's all set up on purpose in order to try to, degrade our foundation. But there's nothing that they can do to degrade our foundation, because we are founded on the rock. We are founded on the Most High. And there's absolutely nothing they can do or say that can prove otherwise. I'm going to read a little bit of Nick Cannon's, his apology. And it's going to be real funny because they must be watching what we're talking about, because they all, they talk about, first it was just they tried their best not to even talk about the Hebrew Israelites. Then on some of the stuff we know about the Hebrew Israelites, and they don't know what they're talking about, or this or trying to marry the Hebrew Israelites and Farrakhan together and making them all crazy and stuff like that. Anything except for talking about the topic. We're going to put the ball in your court, though. We're going to put the ball in Ish's court and the Gentiles' court, because they always seem to want to be the ones that can sit there and tell you who's legitimate and who's not. And they always love to say, well, we were enslaved. Jewish people were enslaved 5,000 years ago. And I was actually in here. I was like, hey, you guys are just walking right into it. There's a big pile of crap right here on a sidewalk, and you guys just walked right into it. I love the way the Most High makes you guys, try to say, hey, me too. I know you guys were enslaved, but we were enslaved 5,000 years ago. Oh, yeah? Prove it. Prove that you guys were enslaved 5,000 years ago. I'm going to show you how you can't prove it. So you just can't say Mr. Me Too with no proof. Let's read a little bit of this apology from Nick Cannon. First and foremost, I extend my deepest and most sincere apologies to my Jewish sisters and brothers for the hurtful and divisive words that came out of my mouth during my interview with Richard Griffin. They reinforced the worst stereotypes of a proud and magnificent people. Really? Wow, it sounds like somebody wrote this one. They're magnificent people, okay? And I feel ashamed of the uninformed and naive place that these words came from. Now, see, here we go again. Uninformed and naive. Again, we're the idiots for even saying these things, because that means that, we don't know what the hell we're talking about. All right, we'll let them go ahead and keep on running their mouths. The video of this interview has since been removed. While the Jewish experience encompasses more than 5,000 years, and there is so much I have yet to learn. See, that's right there. That's where we got you. When you guys sit here now and try to sit there and make it sound like, you guys have just suffered just as much as we have. Because, 5,000 years ago, over in the so-called Middle East, they went through the same horrible things. They went through slavery for 430 years, and the Egyptians put them into slavery, and you guys all know the story. That all happened over there, right? Okay. So that's exactly where you just stepped in it. Okay. And let's see, and I have yet to learn. Well, hold on, let's read the whole part. While the Jewish experience encompasses more than 5,000 years, and there is so much I have yet to learn, I have had at least a minor history lesson over the past few days. And to say that it is eye-opening would be A vast understatement. In a couple of days, you had everything just all this information just blew your mind all of a sudden, huh? Okay. I want to express my gratitude to the rabbis, community leaders, and institutions who reached out to me to help enlighten me. He's pretty much making them say, well, I was a dumbass until they pretty much just came and enlightened me to all this information that I didn't know before. I would love to hear about all this great information. Okay. That all of a sudden he just enlightened him enlightened him with. Says, instead of chastising me, I want to assure my Jewish friends, new and old, that this is only the beginning of my education. Oh my gosh. Okay. I am committed to deeper connections, more profound learning. And I just stopped it right there. I'm just going to stop it right there. So his education started in the last couple of days. And now all of a sudden he realizes that we're not the Hebrews and that, anybody that says that's an idiot and naive. Okay, that's cool. And that they went through the same things 5,000 years ago. That's what they would want you to believe. But let's take a look here at Herod's, which is one of these publications from over there in the so-called Middle East and in the land over there. And let's see what they have to say. Now, what I'm going to let you know is this. Okay, and I read this in the Medieval Empire books, and I'm going to probably bring this out in a video. That you understand that they did not canonize the books or the Bible until Council of Trent, 1500s, right? So they were pretty much starting up a brand new religion. And what they needed to do was they needed to legitimize the religion, try to legitimize their religion. So they got the Old Testament, which, is actually old books. I'm sure they got from over here. And then they married the two with the Old Testament and the New Testament. And that's how they, established their new religion with, Good Times Jesus and everything else. They didn't have the Old Testament over there in the three parts. The Old Testament was over here. All right. So in order to, legitimize their brand new religion, they put the Old Testament and their New Testament together. Now, big problem though. Many of the events in the Old Testament, if they didn't have the Old Testament, how then could they actually say that the events happened over there? And then they couldn't. They can sit there and make up their own homeland and act like, this is where all this stuff happened over here in the Old Testament was over here. But there's no archaeological evidence to prove that any of this happened over there. So when you say, we've been going through hell for 5,000 years, and we're the people of the book, and we're the ones that have been going through it for 5,000 years, then you better damn sure be able to prove it. If you're saying that all these events happen over there in the so-called Middle East, then prove it. Don't just say, oh, don't bring up the subject, or you're being racist, or you're an idiot, or we need to enlighten you. Their own archaeologists tell you that they can't prove a bunch of the events happened over there. Why is that? Because the Old Testament wasn't over there. So therefore these events would not have happened over there. These events occurred over here. And if you go back to what is it, America's Egypt, the fourth part by UBTV, he laid it out perfectly. About how there was all these people that were supposedly passing all these pyramids and all this, all these structures, but they never wrote about it. And no one really, wrote about it until Napoleon came in the late 1700s, almost 1800s. How is that possible if they've been there the whole time? And they've been erected for hundreds or, thousands of years that no one wrote about them. That would make sense then that they weren't there, and that those, all that stuff was actually over here, and they had to build it up over there and make it seem as if, everything originated over there. But let's just read this article. This article they tell on themselves. So when anybody says, oh yeah, we went through, slavery just like you, my next two words would be, prove it. I don't want to hear you running your mouth. Prove it. Said, show me Jericho, because if they were there in Egypt in slavery, then they would have had to walking through 40 years, Going into the promised land, there should be a lot of archaeological evidence for all of that. And there is none. So if you can't even show yourself going into the Holy Land, then therefore you wouldn't have been over there in Egypt because no one was even talking about Egypt before. So all the things, there's no evidence about you being there. So we're not going to give you a pass and say, oh, okay, well, you just because you said you were in, captivity, we'll believe it. No, show us the proof. Let's read this real quick. Is the Bible a true story? Despite feverish searching with scripture in one hand and cutting edge technology in the other, evidence backing the Bible remains elusive. But there are some surprising anomalies. No, evidence backing the Bible remains elusive over there. That's what they forgot to put in there. Evidence backing the Bible remains elusive in the so-called Middle East because it didn't happen there. So the people saying it happened over there, prove it. I don't got to talk about a certain race of people. I'm just saying, hey, if you're saying that all this stuff happened over there, you've had the lands now for a long time, you've had control of it, you should have ample proof that you're the people. It says, beauty and biblical evidence both lie in the eye of the beholder. It seems no evidence of the events described in the book of Genesis has ever been found. There you go. Hey, right from the beginning, huh? So anytime they say, hey, you need to get educated. You need to figure out, what's really going on. Okay. And hey, I just found one article and it pretty much just destroyed all the stuff you guys just said. Y'all said that all this stuff happened over there. All this stuff in Genesis happened over there. And there's no evidence whatsoever. Again, let's read that again because that sounded kind of nice. Beauty and biblical evidence both lie in the eye of the beholder. It seems no evidence, none, no evidence of the events described in the book of Genesis has ever been found. No city walls have been found at Jericho from the appropriate era that could have been toppled by Joshua or otherwise. Now that's kind of huge, isn't it? The story of Joshua there going in and destroying Jericho, and there's no archaeological evidence of it happening at that time. So therefore your entire story unravels. If there's no proof of them going into Jericho, okay, and destroying the walls of Jericho there, then you just start going back. Then there's no proof of the 40 years, okay, of searching. Then there's no proof of Egypt, of you guys being in Egypt or anything else. Let's continue. The stone palace uncovered at the foot of Temple Mount in Jerusalem could attest that King David had been there, or it might belong to another era entirely, depending on who you ask. Okay? So we got the rare inscription from King David's era found outside Jerusalem, crying, King David, are the ruins found in Israel really his palace? Brightly dyed 3,000-year-old textiles from King David era found in southern Israel. Archaeologists always hoped that advances in technology would shed fresh light on at least part of this ancient mystery. Did the Bible really happen? So far, what discoveries there are tend to indicate that at least the timelines are off. Yeah, okay. Like I said, we're not going to trust anything these people say. They love to just lie about absolutely everything. The paucity of evidence. 18 years ago, on October 29, 1999, Haaretz published an article by Tel Aviv University's Ze'ev Herzog, whose message was spelled out in the very headline. The Bible, no evidence on the ground. All right, so right from jump, no evidence. And again, you got these professors who go to these schools and supposedly, they're the experts and they're going to tell you if it's true or not. Okay? Of what? No evidence that the children of Israel sojourned in Egypt, passed through a miraculously parted Red Sea, wandered the Sinai desert for 40 years, or indeed any years, and no evidence that they conquered the land of Israel and divided it up among 12 tribes of Israel. The renowned archaeologist also shared his suspicion that David and Solomon's united kingdom described in the Bible as regional power was at most a minor tribal domain. So again, when you hear them, especially when 5,000 years we've been, we have a history, being in these lands for 5,000 years. Well, prove it. As you can see now, there's no proof. So now we can sit here, if we're going to sit here and, act like, well, who had the worst oppression, Ish or the black people? And I was going to say, no one's been as, oppressed as the Jewish people. Well, this whole, this whole thinking is now falling apart. And all it took was, a quick little Google search. That doesn't take that much because there's nothing to prove what these people have been saying. Jehovah, the God of Israel, had a wife. Okay, we'll skip that part. We don't need to talk about that one. I'm going to go ahead and go in because that's not what we're talking about right now. The unbridgeable gap Herzog described between the biblical tales and the archaeological findings was nothing new to researchers. Israeli archaeologists have long thought as much based on biblical criticisms. Theories originated in Germany. Now we got people over in Germany who are making these kinds of thoughts and whatever else, okay? During the early 19th century. The general public, however, was shocked. So yeah, the whole general public, because they just assumed, because they tell you this is the Holy Land, that, hey, they wouldn't lie to us. They're not going to lie to us. They're going to tell us the truth, right? Well, when they started getting this information, the general public, however, was shocked. Just like it's going to be shocked now when they realize that the true people of the Most High are the last ones you're going to think it was. That's what's going on right now. Okay. So yeah, the general public was shocked then, and they're about to be shocked now, realizing that the people they've had at the bottom that they've been destroying are the real children of the Most High, and that these lands over here are actually the lands that was given to His people. So today, 18 years on, armed with cutting-edge dating and molecular technologies. Okay, so now they got all this great technology. So now they're going to definitely be able to prove that all these things happened over there. Okay. He said, archaeologists increasingly agree with Herzog that generally the Bible does not reflect historical truths. Well, there's this historical truth. It just doesn't reflect them over there. Now, the Bible is true. Look at it, what's happening right now. Look at what it said was going to happen to the Most High's chosen people. They were going to lose their identity, lose all knowledge of themselves, not know their tribe, their tongue, their lands, anything. And now the Most High is waking them up in the lands of their captivities, just like He said they would. So it would make sense that if that's happening now at the end, then the things at the beginning also happen. It's just it doesn't fit the lands over there. So for them, if it doesn't fit the lands over there or their narrative, then all of a sudden, you know what? The Bible's wrong. We're right. The Bible's wrong. You see? That's the way that they think. Okay? The Bible does not reflect historical truths, but the jury's out on several key issues, and at least some stories have been bolstered by actual discoveries. For instance, in the copper mines of Timna, the mysterious, powerful fort of Khalifa, and in Jerusalem itself. Okay, so they can twist some things, We know that they bury things and hope to find it later on to kind of legitimize things that they believe. We understand. Okay, the Bible in one hand, pick in the other. Let me see here. Meanwhile, everybody wants to know whether the Bible is literally true, from the layman to the clergy to the political echelon, pertaining as it does to questions of identity and our right to the land. Well, if you're already showing that there's no proof of all these things happening over there, then how do you have proof to the land or a right to the land? Another question. Among archaeologists, the camps have split according to academic institution. In Jerusalem, the biblical maximalist camp dominates, for instance, arguing that the impressive palace found in the city of David practically had to have belonged to David. In Tel Aviv, the critical minimalist camp prevails in Tel Aviv, arguing that there is no evidence to buttress the Bible. So the fact that you even got, these are Jewish people who are pretty much arguing with themselves, like always, about, what's right and what's wrong. But no one else can have an opinion. Okay? Okay. But as excavations progressed in the 1970s and 80s, rather than substantiation, what began to pile up was contradictions. So there's more contradictions. In Jericho, no, this is huge. If there's no wall and there's no city, of Jericho during the time of Joshua, then how can you sit there and say that all these things happened there? That's one of the main stories. If that city's not there, then all the other cities aren't there. So therefore, the whole book of Joshua doesn't fit over there. They've already told you now that Genesis didn't fit over there. So now, Joshua doesn't fit over there either. Exodus doesn't fit over there either. Because there's no, sojourning out for 40 years. There's no proof of that. So now these books are not fitting over there. So again, in Jericho, no wall was found from the era that Joshua was supposed to have lived, around the mid 13th century BCE. But he could have, that he could have caused to tumble. So there's nothing there for him to make. There's no walls for him to have make tumble, to make fall down. And that was a huge miracle in the Bible. But there's no proof that it happened over there in the so-called Middle East. Okay, so around the 13th century BCE, that he could have caused to tumble down. No evidence has been found that a large new group of people entered into Canaan during the post-Exodus settlement period. So there's no huge group of people also that moved in. So no large new group of people entered into Canaan during the post-Exodus settlement. So now that didn't happen. So now all your claims about 5,000 years of history and everything else are now all going out the window. But you see, our destruction, you can see there's proof, there's the receipts, there's everything right there that shows all the way till today. So people don't want to come in and just steal. They want to steal our thunder. They want to steal the fact. They want to steal our birthright. They want to steal, our lands. They want to steal our culture. They want to steal our blessing. Like they've had it. Yeah, you guys have had it. Okay, now it's time to give it back. That's how it is. And the Most High is going to make you give it back anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay? So there is, in fact, no evidence to substantiate Exodus. No, now we got, it's getting worse and worse the more you look at it. So you guys saying we're naive and, we're coming from a position of, not understanding or not knowing or bad information. Well, why don't you guys go ahead, take some time and prove the fact, prove yourselves, prove your lands, prove your history. Okay? In Jerusalem, no concrete remains have been found from the purported glorious United Kingdom, and nowhere is there biblical evidence of the Kings David or Solomon either, with the possible exception of the Biet David inscription. More on that below. Nor do major archaeological tells form to biblical descriptions. Okay, until after the period of the purported United Kingdom. So, like I said, there's a whole lot of stuff here. Okay, what just happened here?